Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really get into complex topics and, cut through the noise to find what matters. Today, we're exploring something genuinely, mind-bending. It starts with this idea of a huge virtual investment. Just imagine for a second getting instant access to, the world's most advanced laboratories, all of them. We're talking facilities that, if you built them physically, would set you back over $50 billion. That's the idea behind EON Reality's virtual lab ecosystems, part of their AI Academy platform. So our mission today is to explore how this tech is radically transforming education globally, making top-tier resources accessible to basically anyone with internet.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, isn't just the tech itself, although that's obviously impressive. It's the societal impact. It's about, breaking down these old barriers in education, barriers that have held people back for ages. And it's about unlocking human potential, really, on a global scale, the sheer scope of it and the fundamental shift it represents for access. It's potentially revolutionary.
Okay, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of how it works, let's set the stage. We need to understand the problem EON Reality is trying to solve here. What are the big inequalities in traditional education, especially thinking about, lab access, hands-on stuff?
Right. It's a core issue, and it's been around forever, really. Think about the difference. You have these elite universities, massive endowments. They can afford the absolute best labs, state-of-the-art equipment, amazing facilities, genomics, engineering, medical simulations, you name it.
The works.
Exactly. But then you look at maybe a community college or schools in, say, developing countries. They often struggle to get even basic equipment, forget cutting edge. So it creates this system where, for way too long, your access to quality hands-on learning has basically depended on your zip code and your family's income. One source actually calls it educational apartheid.
Wow. That's a strong term.
It is, but it highlights how opportunities get segregated by circumstance. It limits potential for so many students.
A really stark picture. Because that's the problem. How does EON Reality's virtual lab ecosystem actually tackle this? How does it make these high-tech labs accessible? And when they talk about a $50 billion physical equivalent, what exactly is in this virtual collection?
Yeah, the breadth is key to how it breaks down those barriers. It's genuinely remarkable. We're not just talking virtual chemistry sets here. Think advanced medical simulation labs. Students can practice really complex surgeries on virtual patients that are incredibly realistic.
Without any risk, I assume.
Zero risk. They can explore 3D anatomy, run diagnostics, things you couldn't easily do otherwise. Then you've got, say, industrial manufacturing setups, complex engineering simulations, even quantum physics labs where you can actually, interact with subatomic particles.
Just stuff you literally cannot do in a real lab.
Exactly. Or maybe sophisticated space exploration environments. The range is huge. And here's the crucial part.
Wow.
All of this, all these complex environments, they're accessible on standard devices. Your smartphone, a tablet, a regular computer, or, yes, high-end VR headsets if you have them.
So you don't need fancy gear.
Precisely. It's device agnostic. Your access to premium education isn't tied to expensive hardware. That's how it starts to democratize things globally.
Okay, so access is the first big hurdle cleared. What about the experience itself? Once a student is in the virtual lab, what are the actual benefits? How does it improve learning? And importantly, the cost side for schools.
Right. It hits multiple challenges at once. Let's start with cost, because it's pretty dramatic. Virtual labs mean no physical materials to buy, no expensive equipment to maintain or fix.
Or break.
Good point. And no need for specialized, costly buildings.
Oh.
This can slash the overall educational costs associated with labs by, get this, up to 75%.
75%, that's huge.
It is, and for the institution's operational budget for labs, they're seeing reductions of up to 80%. It's not just saving money, it's making advanced education viable for places that were totally priced out before. It frees up resources.
That really does change the game economically, and probably removes a ton of logistical headaches, too.
Oh, absolutely. Then there's safety. Safety enhancement. This is massive for fields like medicine, chemistry, engineering, anything with risk.
Sure.
Students can practice dangerous procedures, handle simulated hazardous materials, do high-stakes stuff in a totally safe space. Zero risk to them or others or equipment.
So mistakes become learning moments, not disasters.
Exactly. Invaluable learning opportunities instead of dangerous failures.
Makes sense. What about handling lots of students? Physical labs get crowded.
That leads right into the next point. Scalability. Physical labs have limits, right? Number of stations, number of microscopes, students wait, they share their schedules.
Yeah, the classic lab bottleneck.
With virtual labs, gone. Unlimited students can access the exact same premium resources all at the same time. No waiting, no scheduling conflicts. Everyone gets full, immediate access whenever they need it.
Which must mean way more practice time.
Dramatically more. And then there's the question of, well, is it real enough? Authenticity.
Yeah, can a simulation really replace the real thing?
That's where the tech really steps up. These aren't basic animations, they're high-fidelity simulations. Incredibly realistic, detailed. The feedback is that the experiences are often indistinguishable from physical laboratories.
Indistinguishable, wow.
Because of the accuracy, the detail, they're enabling scenarios that are just impossible physically or far too dangerous. Like we said, manipulating particles or doing incredibly risky surgical practice. It pushes the boundary of hands-on.
So it's not just VR. There's AI involved, too.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. How does artificial intelligence actually personalize things inside these labs? What does that feel like for a student?
This is where it gets really transformative, educationally speaking. The AI is key. Think of AI mentors, available 24/7, offering unlimited guidance right when the student needs it.
Like a personal tutor.
Exactly, but one that knows the subject perfectly and has infinite patience. This AI can adapt the experiments based on how the student is doing, their learning style. It spots where they're struggling and gives immediate, specific feedback on their performance.
That level of individual attention sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Usually only possible in, tiny classes or with private tutors.
Precisely. One source described it as giving every student the equivalent of a dedicated laboratory instructor with perfect knowledge and unlimited availability. That kind of hyper-personalized support was historically only for the most privileged. Now the goal is to make it available to everyone.
Okay, so we've covered the problem, the virtual solution, the advantages, the AI. What's the impact looking like on the ground? For the students in schools already using this, are there concrete results? And what's the bigger picture here for educational equity worldwide?
Yes, definitely seeing concrete results. And they're pretty striking, not just small improvements. Early data shows students completing lab training about 4 times faster than with traditional methods.
4 times faster.
Yeah, think about the efficiency gain there for students and instructors. And maybe even more importantly, knowledge retention. It improves by up to 400%.
400%. How is that even possible?
It sounds staggering, I know. But it likely comes from that mix of unlimited practice, the instant AI feedback, and how immersive and authentic the simulations are. Students are doing, not just memorizing, they're experiencing it.
That makes sense. Deeper engagement.
Right. And students themselves report feeling a 3.75 times greater emotional connection to the material. They're more invested. Plus, as we mentioned, institutions see that 70–80% drop in lab operational costs. Real money saved.
That 400% retention really stands out. What drives that, and how does it connect back to helping students globally?
Well, the retention comes from that active learning loop practice, feedback, correction, more practice, all personalized. And connecting it globally, the key is that accessibility, especially on standard smartphones. That device-agnostic approach directly tackles global educational inequality. It overcomes the technology barrier. Imagine a student in a place with limited resources using just a basic smartphone. Suddenly, they have access to a world-class quantum physics lab simulation or an advanced medical procedure trainer.
Things they could never have accessed before.
Never. It fundamentally shifts the landscape towards real equity. It's about equipping students everywhere with the skills they need for what people are calling the AI-driven economy, building a global talent pool.
Wow. Okay, it's really clear EON Reality's virtual labs aren't just a cool piece of tech. It feels like a genuinely profound step towards making high-quality education something universal, empowering learners everywhere.
Absolutely. And maybe that leads to the final thought for you, the listener, to consider. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a huge question: what actually happens? What happens when truly world-class, personalized, hands-on learning becomes globally accessible? When cost and geography are no longer the main barriers, think about the explosion of potential for human development, for innovation, for economic growth. What happens when opportunity is defined not by where you live or how much money you have, but just by your own curiosity and drive? It's a really exciting prospect. It could genuinely reshape learning for generations, create a much more capable, informed world.